expose yourself to new things.
Mm,
How can, we've all heard it before. Einstein's definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results.
yes.
I've also even heard an example like in the professional world. Someone writes on the resume that they have 10 years of experience. And the book I was reading, the author says, well, if you've been doing the exact same thing in your role on the job for 10 years, not challenging yourself, not taking on new projects, you actually don't have 10 years of experience. You have 1 year of experience repeated 10 times.
Ooh, that's perfect.
You know what I'm
Yes.
saying? Because you haven't done anything different.
No, you
You're not
haven't.
growing.
Hello, hello, and welcome back to Journey of a Fearless Female. I'm your host, Paola Rosser, and this week my guest is Wyjuana Montgomery, right? Wyjuana Montgomery. She's an international speaker, award-winning author, and the CEO of Wyjuana Speaks Consulting LLC. Wyjuana's strong voice immediately draws her attention. Sorry. Wyjuana's strong voice immediately draws in her audience as she authentically and transparently tells her story to help women and teen girls push past their fear, trauma, pain, and self-doubt to walk in their destiny and live out their full potential. Wyjuana continues to travel the world using Wyjuana Speaks as a platform to share her message of no fear and women's youth empowerment. Aside from being a mentor to many, she's also a wife of 20 plus years, a mother, and a mini grandmother, auntie, and a dog mom. Everybody, please welcome Wyjuana. Hi.
Hello, how are you?
Good. I'm so excited to have you on the podcast. I met Wyjuana through an email. I love that she just sent me an email and said, I would love to be on your podcast. So, yes, I get guests from all over the place. She currently lives in Oklahoma City. So, I love when people reach out and say, I have a story to tell. So, I'm excited to hear your journey. So, tell us about your journey and how you became the woman that you are today.
My life started with a bang from the very beginning. I am my mother's sixth out of eight pregnancies and an only child because
Wow.
she always went into preterm labor. So I was born weighing 1 pound, 14 ounces, dropped to 1 pound, 6 ounces, and only 12 inches long. So I
Wow.
have felt that sense of purpose from the very beginning, understanding how fragile and humble my beginnings were, and then as an only child, I've had that mother that always pushed you out there, you sing. So we're in the middle of a women's Bible study in someone's home and they need someone to open up with the song. There you go, sing the song.
Mm-hmm.
You're in the kids choir, sing the solo. And so you know what I'm saying? You got the proud mom who just pushes you out there. And I think just the life we live, moving a lot, being in different neighborhoods, maybe switching states, I just learned that you have to be willing to step up and step out and put yourself out there and be flexible, no matter what's
Yeah.
going on. So there's just been just a series of things in childhood, coming across racism, making new friends. I'm a survivor of sexual abuse, and that was something that really led me to understand the importance of being a voice and a support for not only teen girls but women. Because if the wounded girl, and it might not be sexual abuse, it could be anything, not having your father, maybe being in poverty, any number of things that could happen. If the wounded girl isn't healed, that wounded girl becomes a wounded woman. And
Yes.
yeah, I'm sure you have come across people. It doesn't matter if they're 30, 40, 50, 60 years old. If the wounded girl is not healed, that same hurt space exists in the woman. And
Yeah.
everyone who comes across her, she is actually dealing with them through that lens as opposed
Yeah.
to being restored because everything in life is viewed from that place of hurt and pain. And I wanted to be a resource that could help women come out of that and know that there's life on the other side.
Yeah. I think that's a huge in an important conversation to have because I'm 42, I'm still, or 43 now. I'm still going through my own healing journey. And there are so many times where my own wounded child still tries to take control. And
Mhm.
there are times in my life where I'm like, wait a minute, I've done so much healing, so much therapy. I've read the books, I've taken the courses, I've gone through conferences. Like, why is she still showing up? Because I think the healing journey, there's never a time where it's just like, okay, I'm done. I'm complete. Because the cosmic joke is the universe will show you another reason why you still need to uncover these certain layers upon you, because trauma really does seep into like all areas of your life, and they're deep rooted in your soul and in your cells. And it's, and so it takes a long time to actually heal your wounded child. You have layers upon layers and generational trauma that you're trying to break. Um, what have you encountered, as being a person of color? I'm Mexican. Therapy wasn't something that, we talked about. Even when I said I was going to go to therapy, they were like, we don't go to therapy. We don't talk about like the family, to
Right,
everybody. So
right,
what did you encounter? Because I'm sure it's the same thing, in the Black community, where it's like, you don't go to therapy, you don't talk about what's going on behind closed doors, or that's just how we grew up. It doesn't matter if so did I got molested. Look at me. It's not that big of a deal. It's like they want to just bury all the trauma and all the pain and pretend it didn't exist, even though it's still obviously triggering multiple generations.
right. There's a lot of things I encountered. The first thing with regards to trying to heal and move past being molested, the first person I told, besides my mother, was a childhood friend, and she wasn't black. I lived in the suburbs where we were the only black family for 3 years,
Mm,
and I was the only black student in my class, other than a biracial girl. But she lived out there her whole life, so how you kind of get grandfathered in.
yeah.
The very first person I told really didn't understand it and kind of thought it was like having an older boyfriend and didn't understand it was like unpleasant. And so I thought that kind of like re-injured me. She didn't
Yeah.
realize that this was my best friend, but she just was so young. When I'm describing something that happened from 11 to 12, and I'm talking to another 12-year-old, she just couldn't understand. And so her response was one that was like, okay, if that's what everyone is going to think that I liked it, then I can't tell anyone else about this. So
Yeah.
I really held that into myself and didn't share it with anyone else until college. And
Mm,
it was my sophomore year of college, and my roommate had not the exact same experience, but one of basically kind of being manipulated in that area. And so she actually understood. And then I realized the more that I shared, unfortunately, the statistics are terrible. So there
yeah.
are other young ladies, the more I shared, they realized it was safe to share as well. As far as therapy, there was no therapy early on. It's kind of like we just, I talked about it with my mother. My faith was a big part of my life, so that helped me through. But the interesting thing is the first place that therapy came into play was way down the line. I got married to my husband just shy of 2 months after I graduated from undergrad,
Okay.
and I had a work study job. And the grad student who I was working with, one day we were just talking about it. I was all excited talking about my wedding plans. And she said, "You know what? Have you ever gone to therapy? Have you ever seen a counselor about the abuse?" And I said, "No." And she said, "You might want to consider it because you don't know how that experience could impact you now that you're going to be married. It's an intimate relationship. You just don't know." And I thought, wow, that had never even crossed my mind, but it
Yeah.
made so much sense. And so I immediately signed up with, the student counseling that was available. And I think it's a very good decision that I made, but it really had never crossed my mind. And she was so right, because there were things that, even though there's nothing wrong with it, because of how I was introduced, it's like they were triggering and
Yeah.
brought flashbacks. So I had to find my own space and my own comfort to be able to explore that, because there are triggers. You can close your eyes and relive the moments all over again. And so I'm really glad that I followed her advice
Yeah,
on that one.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I definitely believe that therapy is definitely the first place to start. And I think I try to get my sisters and my cousins and all of them to go to therapy, but because we're Mexican, it's like you don't talk about our family stuff behind closed doors with somebody else. And how are you going to trust them that they're not going to spread all these rumors? They're so afraid of what other people are going to think versus how you're feeling and
Right.
validating your feelings and your experiences and what you went through. But if you're listening to this and you've never thought about going to therapy or even making that your first step, and also the stigma of therapy is too expensive or we can't afford it. I love that you said you just went to the school and you signed up for that.
Right.
That's important. There are so many resources out there for you to actually talk to someone. And what I love about therapy is that it's a non-biased judgment. So like when you said earlier, you talked to your friend who was also 12 years old at the time, she didn't understand, she didn't comprehend that she was actually re-injuring and re-traumatizing you by making it seem as if you liked it, but you're like, obviously she was 12, so she didn't have the wherewithal to know that this is what she was doing. But this is the reason why I tell people it's more important to talk to a therapist than to talk to your friends or to talk to a family member, because most of the time they might re-traumatize you because they don't have the tools or the education to be able to say, like, this isn't, right. And then you have that beautiful platform of just empathy and compassion from a therapist. And like everything else, you should do your research and make sure that you
Right.
find a
You want it
good
to be the right
and a
therapist.
good, healthy therapist. Because I went through 3 or 4 therapists before I found the one that I felt safe with, to be
Right.
able to share my story. So as you got married, did you encounter any areas in your life where, because I feel like getting married and finding the person that you love really triggers you into healing more,
Hmm.
because at least for me too, because I never been loved that way. I never been loved like that from my family members or anything like that, where I felt that unconditional love. That was the first time I ever experienced that. So it was very triggering because I couldn't understand it.
Well, as an only child that it was so hard for my mother to have, I was actually used to being doted upon my entire life. And I also married someone who to this day thinks the absolute world of me. And
Aw.
yeah, something that was really, really helpful is he was very understanding, with me explaining what had happened. It wasn't really difficult, but it was difficult in the sense that every time you retell it, you've got the concern of the parent who feels like, well, now this person's going to think I was a bad mother because this happened to you. And I'm like, no,
Yeah.
this is not something you did. It's not your fault that the person did what they did. And your response was appropriate when I told you about it. You put me out of the path of that person and things like that. So, but you do have to share, and um, just very glad that he was patient and understanding. Because, like I said, in an intimate relationship, you're in situations and scenarios that are similar, but now this is the proper space. It's not
Yeah.
someone taking advantage of you, the child, but because situations may feel similar, there was some work that had to be done so that my mind could be in the present. This is the person I love. This is the space for this. This is not someone you know that shouldn't be interacting with me in this way. So I'm really glad that he loved me and cared enough to understand the need to be patient and not not push me in areas where I wasn't ready yet, because that could have been very traumatic. I actually know people who it did encounter like problems in their marriage because it triggered a memory of past experience that they
Yeah.
didn't even remember until something happened that took them right back there.
Yeah. I love that you mentioned that, your mom doted on you, because I think a lot of people have this misconception that when you encounter sexual abuse, it's because your parents were not taking care of you, and then it has nothing to do with that at all. Anyone is susceptible to being sexually abused, or even in like a narcissistic relationship. Like, anyone is susceptible. And I think a lot of people have this misconception that, oh, it's because you grew up with abusive parents, or it's because you grew up in a broken home, or because nobody gave you love. No, anyone. Like, I have met doctors and lawyers and people who are, have like beautiful homes and beautiful families, and they get caught up because the person that is assaulting you or sexually molesting you or is the narcissist, they are so good at grooming you. And the
Exactly.
craft of being able to manipulate another human being is something that narcissists are super good at.
Yeah.
And, even the smartest person, even the person that comes with loving, doting parents, you can be sucked into that. Correct?
Right. And it's especially easy when, as a young lady, you view the person as a father-like figure.
Mm,
Because my father was not around. I was way more out than in as a
yeah.
child. And so you have someone that you trust because you see them like a father figure, and then they cross that line. So yeah, that makes it even easier, which is why in my second book, I take the time to give like the official, I don't remember if it's like not the CDC, but basically a trusted government entity that gives a very clear definition of what grooming is, so that
Yeah.
people can understand how that process works.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's super important to know that. One of the things that my mom used to do, which I love her now for it. Back then when I was a teenager, I was like so annoyed that she wouldn't let me go spend the night at anybody's house. But
Yeah.
now I'm like thankful that she did, but she was also very aware of like, you don't leave because she had mostly girls and one son, and you
Mhm.
don't leave your children with a man, like no matter who it
Right.
is. Even my own father, I wasn't allowed to be alone, or my brother, because my mom was just very aware. You don't give them temptation, you don't give them, any room to be alone with your child, whether it's a female or even a male. The
Right.
10 times out of, more little boys get molested than women. If I don't even know what the statistics are, but it is just as likely with a little boy than it is with a little girl too.
Yeah, just doesn't get talked about. And I remember in junior high, a friend in one of my classes being abused by her own brother. And the
Oh,
sad part is they removed her from the home instead of removing him. And I'm like, why is she being punished? But
yeah.
the system literally removed her from the home. I
Mm,
guess because they felt like she wasn't safe. But to me, that was like her being punished for someone abusing her. So they left him to stay in the comforts of home and removed her. Several
yeah.
months later, they allowed her back into her home, but I thought it didn't make sense to me. It didn't sit well.
Yeah. I think that's the biggest thing that we need to do as a society is have that conversation, of it's like we reserve these conversations about sex and private parts and all the stuff with your children when you feel like they're old enough to understand, but these things happen before they're even old enough to know
Right,
what is going on. And so as a child, when you're going through that, you feel as if it's your fault, like you did something to bring it upon you.
right.
And so then you're self-loathing yourself more than the person that's actually committing these acts. Like I read somewhere where it's like when the child is being abused, either emotionally, sexually, physically, the child doesn't hate the abuser, it hates themselves more
Mhm.
because they don't understand what they did wrong, and then they feel like they're the person that deserves it, because they're somehow there's something inherently wrong with them, not the person that's actually committing the crime.
Right, right. Yeah, it is an interesting turn of events, and it was, complicated by, being a family friend and being friends with the children of the person and all of that. So, yeah, there's a lot of
Yeah.
dynamics that happen, but, thankfully I found even just the more, as I became a speaker, I remember the very first event where I actually said publicly for the first time in a microphone on stage that I was molested. It's the first time that I could say it without fear,
Mm.
without feeling shame, and it was so freeing. And I'm
Oh,
like, I actually need to do this more because if it's that freeing for me, it's freeing for someone in the audience to know that they're not the only one.
yeah.
So my whole no fear thing, actually the abuse wasn't like the centerpiece of it, but
Mhm.
it's related, and it gave me the resilience that I needed to be able to share with women
Yeah.
and teen, no matter what it is,
So
you
take
know?
us back to the moment when you decided, like, this is what I want to do. I want to speak on stage. I need to write a book. I need to get myself out there. What was that motivation that made you think, like, I need to be the voice for the voiceless?
So that occurred gradually over time, but as far as being a speaker, it's funny to me. I once heard a survey results on Good Morning America that more Americans are afraid of public speaking than death and spiders. Y- Yet, I'm a person who has naturally had the gift my entire life. Like at 4 years old, you know how in church kids do the Easter speeches and all of that?
Yeah.
I'm a child that at 4 years old could be given a 2-page Easter speech and look at it after church and likely have it memorized before I even left, and could memorize way more than others. I have a photographic memory, which sometimes that's annoying when taking a test, because what
Yeah.
happens is even if you don't know the answer, you can see the page and the paragraph and even where the answer was on the page, even if you don't remember the answer. So the gift has always been there. I consider my first official speaking engagement to be in 8th grade. I was there was a teacher that had been told by her colleagues, and you know when you're the new teacher, you get all the work that no one else wants. It was like her
Yeah.
second year of teaching, first or second year, and she asked me to be the mistress of ceremonies for our Martin Luther King assembly. So I wrote, memorized, and gave 3 original speeches, and
Wow.
memorized and gave the I Have a Dream speech, and also was part of the dance team and the choir. So I
Wow. You were
yeah,
a
so
go-getter.
I was like doing it all in 8th grade. And so I consider that my first official speaking engagement. And I noticed that it's something that I really enjoyed. And as far as writing, I've always been a solid writer,
Mhm.
papers in school, but I didn't grow up thinking I want to be an author. What happened is probably about 2015 is when I decided, or maybe 2014, I decided to get serious about public speaking, right? Like,
Mm.
I went to a networking event and said it out loud. I am a motivational speaker. And so I joined a business coaching program. And the first assignment was for us to write a letter to ourselves. And she said, based on the letter that you wrote yourself, your passion for teenage girls is very clear. You have been
Mm.
working with them for years. You have all the content already to write a book for teenage girls. And if you write a book for teenage girls, even if you're not there, because you can't be everywhere at once, even if
Yeah.
you're not there speaking to them in person, your message is still there. So meanwhile, the No Fear Ladies Conference had already been started 2 years prior. And that's
Mhm.
where my No Fear acronym came from. That literally came to me only 3 days before the conference. I was going through a drive
Wow.
through, paying my car note, and all of a sudden, a full acronym from No Fear came to me. So I whipped the car into a parking space and wrote it down on the back of the receipt. And that was the theme of my keynote at my conference that was only 3 days later. For some reason, I'm like, God, you're funny. Never gives me my topic too early. I guess because he
Yeah.
doesn't want me to mess with it. I don't know. But the whole thing came to me. So the No Fear Ladies Conference came into being. And then 2 years later, I wrote the book based on the same concept, but the teen girl version as opposed to the adult version of the
Yeah.
message.
Oh
So
my gosh.
it's been an interesting journey. And I don't know when you want me to tell you what the
Yes,
acronym
tell
is.
us. I would love to hear it.
So no fear. The N is never let anyone tell you what you cannot do.
Mm.
The O is open your mind to the possibility of your greatness.
Ooh.
The F is fight for what you want.
Mm.
The E is expose yourself to new things. The A is act on opportunities to launch yourself. And the
Yes.
R is to reach forward.
Oh, I love
And
that. That was a
yeah,
download that came to you? That's
yes,
incredible.
absolutely.
That's a lot. I would have pulled over right then too. I was like, wait a minute, I
Right.
gotta write this
I was
down
like,
because
"What am
I
I gonna
will
write down before I
forget.
forget?" Right.
So let's go through each of them because I think these are so important. So the N was,
Never let anyone tell you what you cannot do.
I love that because
Yes.
I think so many people, and I just actually experienced this just recently. Somebody, a coach, called me to try to tell me who I was not. and
Okay.
who I was. And she like went through all this stuff. I think she was trying to sell me on her business coaching, but like as she's going through her list of what I am not and what I should be and what I should focus on, I was like, after I got off the phone call, I'm like, who are you to tell
Right.
me who I am? You know, I literally
Right.
was like, wait a minute. I was created by the infinite intelligence of the great I am. Why
Exactly.
would you tell me who I am? Like, don't try to put me in a box.
Right. Right.
Which I
Now,
love that. I love that N is perfect. Okay, so let's move on to the O.
open your mind to the possibility of your greatness.
Oh,
And
I
that's where fear really gets in the way. I always tell people, young people and older alike, it's not how you start, it's how you finish.
mm,
I don't care if you were poor. I don't care what happened back then. It's what you do from now on.
yeah. And I think the biggest factor for anyone, because I grew up in like a neighborhood where I didn't see millionaires, you know?
Right,
So you
right,
didn't think it's possible. And I think if you're growing up in a neighborhood or in an area where affluence or is not there, or you've never met somebody who wrote a book, or
right,
you've never met somebody who's been on a plane, like half my family has never been on an airplane, you know, or has
right.
traveled to the other side to, you know, Rome or Italy or have been somewhere outside of the state. And so you start to be limited by their experiences. And so I love
Exactly.
that you said, open yourself to the possibilities. And that's the biggest factor for anyone who is listening is we are created by an infinite intelligence, infinite, the great I am, the alpha and the omega, the beginning and the end.
Come
It's
on
like,
now.
how can you put limits on the God that created you? And I always tell that to my clients. It's like, if he could create the mountains in the universe and the stars and the butterflies and the ants that can carry twice their weight, why wouldn't he give you the abundance of and the desires of your dreams? Like, why? Like, I don't
Right.
understand that. Like, so open your mind to the greatness that can be you.
And I share the very thing you just mentioned. Sometimes it's the people, often, it's the people closest to you that try to minimize your vision of what you
Mm-hmm.
can be. And it's not that they're intentionally trying to be discouraging. Sometimes they think they're protecting you.
Yes.
I wasn't able to achieve it. I wasn't able to achieve that. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't want you to be hurt, right, by having an unrealistic dream. And
Mm-hmm.
so they don't even realize they're hindering. They think they're protecting you.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the biggest thing is people need to look at people who have done it, you know,
Right.
and that's
Right.
like I think about Steve Harvey and how I love his story about how he used to, you know, stutter and the teacher was like, "Do you see anybody on TV with your color skin or with your stuttering?" And now he's like, "I send my teacher a television every Christmas so she won't miss me."
Keep
You know,
watching it. I
right?
love
Keep
it.
watching. It's like these ideas of all these people who have broken the mold. They're out
Right.
there.
Right.
Everything that you've ever wanted and everything that you ever desired has already been accomplished.
Right.
Someone out there has already, even if you've been diagnosed with cancer, someone out there has healed themselves. So if you want whatever it is that your heart desires, trust that the infinite intelligence has already done it. And you just need to tap into that, like, intelligence, which is in you. It's in you. God is within us. I think that people like forget that is how
Right.
the creator is within us. Like we breathe it in, we breathe it out. And it's like, just really allow yourself to be in the possibility of your greatness.
Exactly.
Oh,
Because
so beautiful.
if you don't see it, it doesn't matter it doesn't matter how much other people tell you. If
Yeah.
you don't believe it, you're not going to act on it.
Yeah, no one can believe it for you. You have to be the
Right.
first person to believe it, and you have to be unwavering in your belief. Because, like you said
Absolutely.
earlier, so many people are going to be like, can't happen. It didn't happen for me. So it's definitely not going to happen for you. And that's
Right.
where you have to really just stay in the belief of the greatness that you are because you do come from the great I am.
Right.
So, okay, F. Let's go with F.
Fight for what you want.
Yes.
We've got this microwave popcorn. Everybody wants it now, especially young people. And certain things you have to fight for. You might not win it the first time, you may not be successful the first time, but anything worth having is worth fighting for. My joke to young people is, if it's too easy, are you sure it's legal? Like, are you sure it's real? Or are you sure it's
Right?
legal?
Right? If you're taking a shortcut, it might not be legal.
Right.
Yes, definitely fight for what you believe in. And it's when you have a dream, when you have a desire, when you have a hope, when you have your heart set on something, there is going to be so many naysayers that are going to
Right.
tell you it's not possible or it's not going to happen for someone like you. And they're going to stomp on your dream. And that's when you really have to fight for yourself, because
Exactly.
as much as you want like your family and your friends to have your back, like the number one person that should be your biggest cheerleader is yourself. And
Absolutely.
that's something that I continue to encounter on my own in my own journey of like what I want to be and what I want to do for my life. I'm 43. I'm still fighting for my dream and my hope and
Yeah.
my desire.
Yeah.
You know, it never ends. You have to continue to fight the good fight. Okay, so E.
Expose yourself to new things.
Mm,
How can, we've all heard it before. Einstein's definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results.
yes.
I've also even heard an example like in the professional world. Someone writes on the resume that they have 10 years of experience. And the book I was reading, the author says, well, if you've been doing the exact same thing in your role on the job for 10 years, not challenging yourself, not taking on new projects, you actually don't have 10 years of experience. You have 1 year of experience repeated 10 times.
Ooh, that's perfect.
You know what I'm
Yes.
saying? Because you haven't done anything different.
No, you
You're not
haven't.
growing. So,
Exactly. That's one thing that I try to really instill in all of my clients is the fact that, we do have to expose ourselves to new things. I
yeah,
mean, the fearless female movement, it's all about like facing your fears and rising and like exposing yourself to new things. I mean, it could be as small as just attending a conference by yourself
right,
because we're so afraid of what other people are going to say or why are you here? Do you not have any friends? Even going to the movies by yourself
right,
is kind of scary, or going out to dinner by yourself. Like expose yourself to new things, expose yourself to a new book, something that you would never normally read. Like open up the book, like open up your mind that there are other people out there learning and growing and expanding and coming up with these crazy inventions. Like my husband and I were just talking about AI. There's so many
right,
people that are so afraid of AI. But if you think about it, people were afraid of electricity. They were
right,
afraid. They were afraid of electricity. Like they were afraid of the car. Like they didn't want to give
right,
up their horses. So it's like we're constantly evolving and growing as a human species. Like, are you going to be behind because you're afraid, or are you going to like take a peek and see like is this something that interests you, is this something that and if not, then at least about it, read up on the
right,
things that are out there so that you could know more things, because I think that's what people don't understand is knowledge is power, but actionable knowledge is even more power. So what, now we're on A, right?
right, right. And I was just going to add, how small is your world if you don't ever do anything new?
Ooh,
To me, that's
yes.
quite boring if you don't ever do anything different from what
Yes.
you and your family and your friends have always done. I tell young people, even they crack me up saying, I'm doing me, I'm doing me. And then when you look at them, are you really doing you? When you dress like your friends, you look like your friends, girls, you do your hair like your friends, and you
Mhm.
won't even take a class or shop at a store that your friends won't go to.
Yeah. It's a huge
You're
thing, and people still in this even as you get older, because my father-in-law is in his 80s and he only wants to hang out with people who are like-minded. And it's
right,
like, but then how are you ever going to learn about other people's perspectives, other people's point of views, if you are not exposing yourself to new things,
right,
and it could be people of different ethnicities, different cultures, different political views.
right.
Read more books. Like, I love that my husband likes to watch Fox News and CNN
My
because he
husband
wants
does
to,
too. He
because he
watches them
wants to,
all. He
yeah,
wants to know
because
the
he
different
wants to hear,
perspectives.
yeah, I want to hear your perspective. Like, I want to hear how you're going to take a stance on this and what are your things. Like, you have to be able to, without the feeling of anger. And I think in society, especially right now, they want to divide us so badly,
Right. You are
and they
so
want to
right.
cause friction because they know the power that we have if
If there's
we
unity.
actually got unity, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so what is A?
That A is, so you've exposed yourself. act on opportunities to launch yourself. What is the point of the exposure if you don't act? And the
Mm.
example that I like to give when I'm speaking about the action, imagine sitting in New York City. I've been there multiple times, a great place. And you want to catch the train home and you sit on the bench. And this is, I don't even remember if there aren't even places to sit in the subway really. But the train finally shows up that you claim you've been waiting for so long. You want it so badly. You're so tired. And you let it show up, stop, open the door, and you just watch the crowd push their way in, and you just keep sitting there. You're just sitting there. It's there. The door is open. You don't go in, and then you just let it go by, and then you're still talking about, oh, I wish I could go home. That's how silly it is to
Yeah.
me if you think about it in life. If you keep saying, oh, I wish someone would give me a chance. I wish there was an opportunity to do this, and then when the opportunity presents itself, you don't act out of
Yeah.
fear, out
I
of doubt,
know.
out
Uh,
of,
I'm doing
even
it
when I
right now. I'm
even when
doing it
I
right now. Like I've been trying to write a book for since 2020. I was like, well, even before then, I've always said, I'm going to write a book. I'm going to write a book. And when the opportunity arises and I'm sitting at my desk and I have nothing, like I've cleared out my schedule, I have nothing. I then get on TikTok or then I start organizing this closet or I start, you know what I mean? It's like,
yes,
it's that feeling of like, you want something. And here's the thing, when you want something so bad, the whole universe conspires to bring it to you. It does.
absolutely,
And
absolutely.
so the universe is conspiring and making everything perfect. Like everything is in alignment for you to actually get on that subway and go towards your dreams. But I think a lot of us have so much fear, which I love that your acronym is no fear. We have all this fear that, someone may not read my book or someone may not listen to my podcast or someone may not listen to my album or whatever it is that your dream is trying to tell you to do. Like we all have it in us. We all are special individuals. Like I tell my husband, how crazy is it that there's so many billions of people and yet we all have a significant fingerprint,
Right.
right? And so that means every single one of us have this magical talent, skills, abilities to be part of the human collective.
Right.
And most of us aren't following our dream because fear is holding us back from actually taking that action.
And no one can do it like you can. Even when I
Right?
started doing my conference, it's not like it was the only conference in town, but
Uh-huh.
no one had the angle that I had.
Yeah.
No one has the story that I have to share. And talking about writing a book, I couldn't believe it. This year I participated in this, it was like a 4-day virtual summit called Women in Publishing. And I had no idea. I was in one session, and the facilitator said that on average, a nonfiction writer only sells 50 copies of their book, whether you're self-published or with a major publishing house. I said, wow, I've blown that out of the water. I mean, my first book, I had one group buy 600 copies,
Wow,
another,
that's incredible.
another group buy 60 copies, a school system buy 200 or 150 copies. That never even occurred to me about it not selling, but I had no idea. I thought, well, what does that mean? But then I realized I know a lot of people who are nonfiction authors and they put the book out, but that's it.
They're
They're not
afraid to promote
speaking.
it. They're
Right. They're
afraid to
not
speak
promoting.
about it. Yeah.
Right. So it's
No,
just
I get
there.
that. I get that. When I put out my podcast, I would tell nobody that I had a podcast. I was so afraid of criticism and all that stuff that I never would tell anybody. And we would go out to dinner and my husband would be like, "Oh, she has a podcast. It's called Journey of a Fearless Female." And I would be so embarrassed because I'm like, please don't tell anybody. But now, like, I'm out there, I'm promoting it, I'm putting it all social media. Like, it took me a long time to put this on YouTube. And now I'm like doing it, but it took me a while to get past the fear. And I tell people all the time, all the fear is an illusion that
Yeah.
is not there. The scary monster is not there. It's safe for you to be you. And like I said earlier, all the universe is conspiring for you to be the person, to be the full expression of who you were meant to be here on this earthly plane. Like we all have the gifts and the talents. Like you are uniquely special in this time, in this moment, to create, to be the creator with the great I am, to create what you're supposed to create here.
Exactly. And
Right?
you would be surprised the minute, well, you wouldn't be surprised because you know it, but listeners out there, literally, when you open your mouth and say that thing that you are that you're supposed to be doing, everything comes into alignment just like she's saying. The first time I said publicly at a networking event, I am a motivational speaker. In 3 days, I had 6 speaking engagements, not including what was going to be my own first conference, because
Wow.
everything lines up. And here's the thing, when you refuse to act, God would not give you the mission that you have if someone else didn't need it. So
Mm.
why are we hiding our books? Why are we not speaking? Why are we hiding our podcast? So every moment that you delay, someone else is not getting the healing, the restoration, empowerment, encouragement that they need because you're not being obedient and you're not in alignment. So think
Yes.
about that. Someone else, a whole group of people somewhere are missing out on what they need because you refuse to step up and
Oh,
and get going.
I love it. Yes. And I loved earlier you said, and no one can do it like you can.
Right.
Because people could say, like, oh, well, Oprah is already out there, or Brene Brown is already out there, or Mel Robbins has that corner, or don't worry about it. Like, but everybody needs to hear it from you. They need to hear it from me. They need to see it
Right.
from people that like look like them. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
I went
Mhm.
to a conference and I spoke. I was the only Mexican woman on the panel. And afterwards, the one other Hispanic woman came up to me and she was like, oh my God, like I was going to leave because nobody looked like me and nobody has the same experiences as me. And then you get on the stage and I look and I just was crying. I was like, you're me, like you're me. And
Yeah.
it was just like it's exactly what we need to do. Like you said earlier, we need to show up because there's someone out there that needs your voice and your uniqueness, and to show them that there is restoration and empowerment and motivation to do the things that they need to do in this lifetime. Okay, so R, we're in R.
The R is to reach forward. So
Mm,
with all that's poured into you, all that's been around you, and the reason for the reach forward, all the time we hear people say, you have to move forward, you have to walk forward, you have to run forward. The vision I got in my head is someone who's drowning. And this is a very real vision because if you I can't swim. I've had trouble with ear infections and things since I was like a baby.
mm-hmm.
If someone is drowning, they can't walk forward, they can't run forward. They if they move forward, it's probably only because the water is moving them.
Yeah.
But if you toss them a life preserver, all they have to do is what?
Reach
Reach.
for.
So if you reach forward, that's a baby step, but you're moving. And I don't care who you are, you can be a billionaire who seemingly is at the top of your game. But until the day that you die, there's always more that you can do.
Yes.
Even a billionaire, even a CEO, executive vice president, a president of a country can do more.
Mm-hmm.
So I want everyone to reach forward, whatever that means in their sphere of influence and in their life.
Oh, I love it. I love this acronym, No Fear. Wyjuana, it was so incredible to speak with you today. So, as we wrap up this episode, what would be your nugget of wisdom for anyone who is listening?
My nugget of wisdom is to not be afraid to be yourself. Because a lot of people think if I'm going to start as a speaker, if I'm going to be an author, even a podcast, like there's nothing wrong with gaining inspiration for others, but what makes your platform unique? You have to be your unique self. Don't get up there and try to sound just like someone else, try to imitate them. Embrace all the uniqueness that is yours because there is a slice of the pie, the audience pie, that needs you to be exactly who you are. So I want to encourage everyone to embrace and walk in their uniqueness.
Oh, I love it. How can my audience find you?
You can find me. There are not a whole bunch of Wyjuanas roaming around. So wyjuana.com, WYJUANA.com is my website. My email address is wyjuana@wyjuana.com. I'm also on Facebook under my name, Wyjuana Montgomery. Instagram is Wyjuana the Real. Someone hacked and took over my other one, so I had to
Oh.
create a new Instagram called Wyjuana the Real, so that I'm not trying to sell you some investment scheme that the hacker was doing. So yes,
And what are the name of your books and where can they find them?
my first book is for teenage girls or those who love them and work with them. It is called Bold, Brave, and Courageous, a no fear success guide for teen girls. Each chapter is based on that acronym. The second book, which just came out in March, is called The Pain of Being Destined for More, Getting to
Ooh.
the Next Level, Spiritually, Professionally, or Personally. Both books can be found on Amazon.com, or you can reach out to me if you'd love a personalized autographed copy.
Oh, thank you. Thank you again for listening to Journey of a Fearless Female. I'm your host, Paola Rosser. If you're looking for a life coach or a spiritual mentor, you can book a free discovery call with me at www.fearlessfemale.com. You can also follow me on Instagram at fearlessfemale_coach, subscribe to my YouTube channel at fearlessfemale, or find me on TikTok. I'm under at paola.rosser. And if you love this episode, make sure you hit subscribe, share it with your friends, and leave a review. I read every single review, and I truly appreciate the time you spend writing it.